The rain didn't wash the blood off the pavement, it just made it slicker, spreading the crimson into the gutters of 42nd Street like a bad investment. I stood over what was left of Lucas Peterson. He was a city councilman, a man who supposedly knew where every skeleton in this town was buried. Now, he was just a heap of broken bones in a tailored suit, sprawled at the bottom of the spiraling atrium of the new Civic Center. The cops were calling it a suicide. They said he jumped. But I saw the railing. It was high, reinforced steel. A man doesn't stumble over that. He has to be pushed, or the floor has to give way beneath him. Case 013, the Concrete Web author, Detective Liam Bennett. Date, October 14, 1949. Location, the obsidian shadows of the Bennett & Cumber Agency, 4th floor. Time, 02:00 a.m. The trouble walked in 3 days ago, wearing a red trench coat that screamed danger louder than a siren. Her name was Vivian Ross. She wasn't the grieving widow type. She was the type who calculated the insurance payout before the body was cold. But her eyes, hazel, sharp, and terrified, told a different story. She slapped a thick envelope of cash on my desk, right next to my half-empty bottle of rye. "I need you to look into the blueprints, Mr. Bennett," she said, her voice trembling like a violin string about to snap. "My fiancé, Lucas, didn't kill himself. He found something in the designs for the new library. He said the architect, Theodore Evans, wasn't building public spaces. He was building traps. I took the money. The door to my office doesn't open for virtue. It opens for desperation and for the bills that stack up like dead leaves in autumn." Vivian told me about Evans, a genius, a recluse, a man who treated concrete like it was living tissue. She said Lucas had found a hidden room in the blueprints, a void space that shouldn't exist. 2 days later, Lucas took a dive off the atrium Evans designed. I went to the scene of the crime after the cops had cleared out. The yellow tape was already sagging, soaked by the relentless drizzle. The Civic Center was a monolith of glass and steel, cold and uninviting. I stood where Lucas fell. The police report said vertigo. I looked closer at the floor tiles near the edge. They were loose. Not from age. The building was brand new. But by design. A pressure plate. A mechanism. The official story was a lie wrapped in official stationery. The cops, the boys in blue, they look for the simplest line between A and B. But in this town, the line is never straight. It's a maze. I lit a cigarette, the flame illuminating the hollow vastness of the atrium. Evans hadn't just built a building. He had built a machine. And Lucas Peterson was just the first cog to get crushed. What you are about to hear is the version without the police jargon. It's the ugly truth that hides behind the ribbon-cutting ceremonies. Pay attention to the architecture. In this story, the walls don't just have ears, they have teeth. I don't believe in coincidences, and I definitely don't believe in the competence of the investigations department when there's political money involved. The police report on Peterson was a joke, a 3-page fairy tale written to keep the mayor happy. I sat in my office, the blinds drawn against the neon glare of the city, staring at the blueprints Vivian Ross had smuggled out. The bottle of bourbon in my drawer was calling my name, but I needed a clear head to navigate this labyrinth. To understand the rot in this city, you have to be willing to smell it. And Theodore Evans' designs reeked. I laid the schematics out under the desk lamp. To the untrained eye, it was just lines and measurements. But I've spent enough time looking at crime scenes to know when something feels wrong. The angles were aggressive. The corridors in the library draft narrowed imperceptibly the further you went in, designed to induce claustrophobia. And then there were the maintenance shafts. They didn't connect to any utility room. They were chutes, dead drops. I found a discrepancy in the HVAC plans for the Museum of Modern Art, another Evans project. A ventilation duct that vented nowhere. It was a sealed chamber. I decided to pay a visit to the architect's latest site, an unfinished opera house near the docks. It was midnight. The fog was rolling in off the harbor, thick as clam chowder. I slipped past the sleeping security guard, a kid named Caleb Miller who looked like he'd accept a bribe of a ham sandwich, and entered the skeleton of the building. The place felt hostile. The acoustics were bizarre. My own footsteps echoed back a split second too late, throwing off my balance. It was psychological warfare built into the mortar. I found the main staircase. It looked sturdy, but when I leaned on the banister, I felt a vibration, a counterweight system. That's when I heard the click. Not a gun, but a latch. I spun around. A man stepped out from the shadows of a support pillar. Not Evans. This was hired muscle, a guy with a face like a clenched fist. Maybe a Smith or a Jones. The name didn't matter. The lead pipe in his hand did. "Mr. Evans doesn't like critics," the goon grunted. We danced. It was the kind of fight you see in the movies. It was ugly, desperate, and muddy. I took a hit to the ribs that tasted like blood and iron, but I managed to sweep his leg and send him tumbling into one of Evans' own open orchestra pits. He landed hard. He didn't get up. I stood there, gasping for air, clutching my side. The violence is the language of this city, and tonight I was fluent. But the fight confirmed it. Evans wasn't just an eccentric. He was a predator. The motivation wasn't money. It was control. God complex. He wanted to decide who walked out of his buildings and who became part of the foundation. He viewed the citizens of this city not as people, but as lab rats in his concrete maze. And he was testing the traps. The truth in a case like this isn't a shiny trophy. It's a rusty nail you step on in the dark. It hurts, it's dangerous, and it leaves you limping. I knew how he did it. Now I had to prove who he was before the concrete set on me. The end of the line was a penthouse office overlooking the city, a glass box in the sky designed by the devil himself. I kicked the door in. Theodore Evans was waiting for me, standing by the window, watching the ants crawl on the street below. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like a banker, soft hands and a suit that cost more than my car. "Mr. Bennett," he said, turning around. "You appreciate the symmetry, don't you? The perfect order?" I didn't appreciate anything but the weight of the .38 in my pocket. I laid it out for him, the pressure plates, the narrowing corridors, the dead-end chutes. He didn't deny it. He smiled. To him, murder was just unplanned structural stress testing. He claimed he was weeding out the weak, the unobservant. He tried to reach for a lever under his desk, probably to open a trap door beneath my feet. I didn't let him. I put a bullet in the expensive mahogany paneling an inch from his hand. The police, led by a surprisingly cooperative lieutenant named Carter Rodriguez, swarmed the place moments later. I had tipped them off with the physical evidence from the opera house. Vivian Ross met me at the station. She looked tired. When I told her Evans was in cuffs and the city was reviewing all his building permits, she didn't smile. She just handed me the rest of my fee. "It won't bring Lucas back," she whispered. She was right. Justice is just a receipt. It doesn't undo the transaction. Technically, Evans was a study in morbid genius. His modus operandi was environmental homicide. He used the psychology of space to manipulate victims into dangerous positions. It reminded me of the old castles with their oubliettes, but modernized with hydraulics and soundproofing. He exploited human trust. We assume the floor will hold us. He weaponized that assumption. The legacy of the case? A few buildings were condemned. Most were just retrofitted. The city is too cheap to tear down a skyscraper just because it has a few kill switches. People still work in the Helix Tower. They just don't lean on the railings anymore. Talking about this, it drains you. It's like digging up a grave just to show everyone the bones, then shoveling the dirt back in. You're left dirty and tired, and the dead are still dead. I share these stories not to scare you, but to wake you up. The world isn't safe just because it's paved. I can hear the phone ringing in the outer office. Probably a new client, maybe a missing husband, maybe a stolen necklace, maybe something worse. The silence never lasts long in this line of work. To keep this office open and to make sure I can afford the bourbon that burns the memories away, I need you to stay tuned. Subscribe. Tell your friends. If you don't, the only voice left in the dark will be the one luring you into a trap. That's enough talk. Turn off the lights and close the door on your way out. I have a glass to fill.